Program Director in the Dean's Office for Orientation and Off-Campus Student Services. And so right now I'm actually wearing the Off-Campus Student Services hat. We're going to split you all up here in a little bit, and I'm going to take the parents and guests of our students who are incoming this fall but not living in our residence halls, so either commuting from home or renting off campus or some other situation where they will not be living in one of the university-owned residence halls. I'm going to have, in just a minute, those parents and guests stand up and meet me in the lobby, and we're going to go to a room with more comfortable chairs. Sorry, those of you stuck with Brian. Those of you who are parents and guests of students living on campus will stay in this room, and Brian from Residence Life will talk to you. I do want to steal 1 minute of his time to just promo off-campus student services. If your student is ever thinking about living off campus during their 4 years here at any point in time, please send them our way. We do renter education sessions. We can be helpful with navigating landlord relationships. We do a lot of stuff to help prepare students for those decisions before they just jump in and sign a lease and don't know what they've gotten themselves into. So if that's something on the future horizons at any point in time for your student, please send them to off-campus student services and we'll get them connected to some great resources. But now I'm going to take those parents and guests of our students who are living off campus this first year, and we're going to head out to the lobby. Yes.
Some of you noticed that I dropped off several copies of the Residence Life handout that we're going to be using for this sessions in the four corners of the room. So could you please spread them around and share with those people who are remaining so that we can be prepared for Brian as he begins his presentation on Residence Life. Brian?
I was going to say, feel free to get up and grab those flyers if you need to here. We'll give you a minute or so to do that. Hi, what are you doing here?
My sister's starting here, so if you wanted me to come with her.
Very nice. Am I dead? Test, test? Oh, good. Okay. Okay. I don't need that. Okay. That can go back. I don't need that. Sister Sharon, do we have any more? Do we have any more of the orange sheets lying around? Looks like about half there. Worst case scenario, we'll grab some more in the middle of this session and we'll get them out to you as well. So, yep. All right, well, while we are acquiring more of those, they will be out at the end of this session in the back as you exit, going to either lunch or the information fair, so look for them there. I really will only reference the sheet one time, and I apologize for that if you don't have it here initially. So, as Josh said, my name is Brian Helmanack. I am the Assistant Director of Residence Life here at the University of St. Thomas. I'd like to welcome you all on behalf of our Residence Life staff. Today is a very exciting day for us. This is the first day of our staff training as well. So our staff is getting all prepared for your students coming and joining us here at the end of August. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are in Residence Life, both our central office staff and our in-hall staff. We're going to talk about our assignment process and how your student received the assignment they did and the roommates that they did. What our expectations are for our roommates, both in communication prior to getting to campus and then once they get to campus, and how to have a successful relationship. What it means to live on campus, both rights and responsibilities. Meal plans we'll touch very briefly. We'll talk about our move-in day, what to expect that day and when you'll be getting more information about that. And last, we'll have some information on how we communicate, both with you and your students. And we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. So first, our central office staff. We are led by Dr. Aaron Mackey, who is our Director of Residence Life. He's been our director for a little over 9 years now. And he oversees our entire operation, both the side that really I watch, which we call housing operations, or as I like to say, the billing and the assignments, the non-people part of our process. And then Erica Thompson, who is our associate director, who oversees what I call the people side, or our residence education side. She supervises all of our in-hall staff, which includes our hall directors and area directors. Our area directors are full-time master's degree holders in higher education. And our graduate students, for our hall directors, are completing their master's degree in higher education administration. So those professional staff live in each one of our residence halls. Additionally, on each floor, we have resident advisors, or the RA. The RA is really that first line of person that your student can go talk to about problems they're having, to get advice about studying, what it means to be away, if they're feeling a little bit homesick maybe. They are a good resource for our students that live right on the floors with them. Erin Thigpen and Jean Kittleson are our assignments and our billing coordinator. They report directly to me, and as a team, we're the three that are responsible for making sure your students' bills are correct and that they're living in the right location, and that if they want to change rooms, that we get them to the right space. Assignments went out to a majority of our first-year students on July 1st this year. That letter included both their assignment, both their building and their room. It also included their roommate name, the roommate home address, and the roommate home phone number. And we'll talk a little bit about why that information in a couple minutes. There was a small sampling of students that did not receive an assignment at that time. We, at this point, have just a couple guys left that we're confirming some assignments for, hopefully here in this week, and that we will get them their assignments out. Additionally, students who are in expanded housing will be receiving their assignments this week as well. We try to wait so as we have movement in the class and movement among our halls that we don't send them 16 update letters when the number of people are changing in their particular space. Our housing system uses that deposit date. That was the date in which you submitted your $200 housing deposit for your student. That date is the biggest date in realizing whether a student got their first choice, second, third choice, or fourth choice in housing. We then looked at those building preferences. So what buildings did they want, in what order? We looked at special interest housing, so our Catholic men's and women's floors, our wellness floors, and our first-year experience areas. That all takes into account as well. And then we look at the roommate matching. So they either answered those 6 questions, and our computer randomly assigned them based on those questions, or if they had a specific roommate that they wanted to live with, and those students mutually requested each other, then we tried to get them in together in the average of their deposit date choice. Okay? Over 94% of our students receive either their first or second choice in housing. Compared to the University of Minnesota, Hamline, Augsburg, all of our local schools, this is well above and beyond what they get for a percentage. So we're very proud of that. We work very hard to make sure our students try to get in their first or second choices. And unfortunately, we can't accommodate it all. We have obviously some areas where, students may just not feel it that particular year, and that can change year to year. So we did try to get them into their first or second choice. Some other information that came in that packet that will be important for you to look at as parents and guests. There's a student information flyer that looks very similar to the orange flyer that most of you have, except it will talk about particularly what to bring and what not to bring to campus. Your students are going to be very excited about the what to bring. Bed sheets, what it means, their clothing, whatever that may be. I need you all, as parents and guests, to focus on the what not to bring. The reason is, they really want to bring their tanning bed, their Whirlpool, their water bed, their toaster, that sandwich maker that their aunt bought them to come to college for. We can't have those, unfortunately. So make sure you take a look at that, see what's approved, what's not approved, and make sure that those items that aren't supposed to come with stay at home. Additionally, there was a flyer in there from bedloft.com, which talks about microfridge rentals and futon purchases. Bedloft.com is a company that we've worked with for many years. They actually used to do rental bed lofts to us as a university. Some good news for those of you who have been here in the past, had students who may have come through before. We now provide a university bed loft in every single first-year space for our students. There is no more renting of bed lofts. So if you're used to that and you're trying to figure out how you go still do that, there's no need to do it anymore. So every single room will come lofted this year, which is very nice and we're very excited about. Last but not least was a renter insurance information piece. And why that might be important for you is that if you check your homeowners or your own personal renter's insurance and talk to your agent, you may want to see what is covered and what is not covered and what your deductible is with that. This is, again, a company we've worked with for many years. We've had very good success with them as students have made claims either on lost or theft or damage or things like that. There's varying deductible levels that you can take a look at, but it's something you probably want to also consult your current insurance agent about. It is not required to have renter's insurance on campus. It just may be a very good idea. So in my last slide, I talked a little bit about what we sent home as information: home phone number, home address. There's a couple of reasons why we don't send things like email, cell phone numbers, Facebook handles, whatever the case may be, because we all know, and I bet if I were to survey everyone in this room, your student received that packet, they opened it up, they looked at the name, they ran to their computer or pulled out their cell phone and typed in that name in Facebook to see who popped up, right? Okay. One thing with Facebook, take everything with a grain of salt. Online, social media, students can put out there whatever they want, for better or for worse. And so it's really important that we encourage your student to actually pick up the phone and call their roommate and talk to them on the phone, or meet them face-to-face if possible. This kind of transitions over to what happens and what is expected when they get here on campus. And that means that they need to communicate face-to-face and have some of those conversations about what is expected about living with another person. Some of your students may have never shared a space before, and this may be a very different experience for them. So helping guide them through that experience in what are good questions to ask, how to handle things when there needs to be compromise is a very good task that is easy for us as adults, but that you can assist your students with. When they arrive on campus, we will sit down with all of our students in our first year areas, and we'll set up roommate agreements. And that means they'll talk through some of those common issues that we see, like, hey, if I have food in the refrigerator, are you able to eat some of that without me knowing or without me caring? If the answer is no, that's great, but that's something that they should talk about before it actually happens and they've not talked about it. Okay. We also talk about what are we going to do in a disagreement. And there are some basic guidelines we always promote, which is you always must communicate face-to-face. That means no sending a Facebook message from on the other side of the room, no texting from the other side of the room, no sending instant messages, no sending tweets out about how much you hate your roommate. Those are expectations that you do not do. We talk about using a mediator. Those RAs on our floor are trained in mediation and to be able to talk through some of those issues and how can they help resolve some of that. If the RA feels overwhelmed or it's a bigger issue than they can handle, the area and the hall director will then be involved and really to help work through some of those concerns or some of those disagreements. We always say moving is the last option. There's a couple reasons for that. First and foremost is there's generally very little space for me to move students here at the beginning of the year. As represented by that, I still have a couple men who still need actual assignments. That means I have nowhere else to move students right now. Now, it doesn't mean that we won't have students show up on opening weekend or whatever the case may be. So if there is space available to move and your student is very adamant about wanting to move, one thing we would ask you as parents and guests to say is, well, what if that's in the building not of your first choice? What if that means moving to a different building that you're not as comfortable with? What if that means that you now have 3 roommates instead of 1? And what does that mean if those roommates are even worse than the roommate you have now? Okay? And there's no guarantee on what that other roommate's going to be like. So really to take that perspective of, okay, is moving really the best option here because we don't know why the other space is available. So what does it mean to live on campus? We talk about with freedom comes responsibility, part of the common good. And what that means is that a lot of our students, this is the first time they're away from home and they have all these freedoms of, I don't have a curfew. I don't have anyone telling me to finish my homework every night. I don't have someone telling me I can't be up until 4 a.m. playing my Xbox or my PS4 every night. Okay? That means they need to take responsibility for themselves and their actions. Some of the common violations we see, we talk about noise, and that means that at quiet hours every night, we shouldn't hear you outside of your room. And what happens if we do? RA will knock on your door and say, hey, keep it down a little bit. It's past quiet hours. If they're having to come to your door every night, that's a problem. And that means you're going to probably have a conversation with your hauler or your area director about why you can't be quiet at a certain time at night. We'll talk about visitation. We have visitation policy that says members of the opposite sex must be out by a certain time every night, and that it's very obvious to us as professional staff, as RAs, that we know when a woman is in a men's hall and a man is in a woman's hall. Their voices are generally very different. And when there's talking and laughing and things going on, we know and we can tell. So we ask that they still abide by that. Again, RA will knock on the door, say, it's really past visitation, you need to leave. If it becomes a consistent issue, then that's when they have a conversation with their hall director. Lastly, with alcohol. And I don't like to go too far into this because our Dean of Students and our Director of Public Safety will talk a lot more about alcohol later this afternoon. But really, we have a system that says we can't have alcohol on campus if you are under the age of 21. And if that happens, you'll meet with the hall and area director, and there will be consequences. Generally, what happens on a first-time alcohol offense is a written warning in their file, an alcohol awareness class, and a fine. Okay? And that can vary based on the severity of the incident or lack of severity in an incident. But that's very generically what we see for a first-time alcohol offense. Then we talk about responsibility for themselves and their items. And that means making sure their door is locked at all times and making sure they have their key and not to lose their key. We want to protect their items and protect them. This means that when they go to shower in the morning, and this happens every year, they get up, they go shower, they don't bring that key with them. The roommate gets up, decides they're not going to shower, and go straight to class. So the roommate gets up, leaves, locks the door, and your student now is the one who's sitting in a towel trying to figure out how to get back into their room. Meaning they have to either knock on the RA's door, very embarrassed, saying, hey, can you let me in? Or worst case scenario, they have to come get a spare key from our office, which can be a long walk from a lot of places in a towel. So that being said, make sure that they have whatever they need, a lanyard, whatever it is, that they're not going to lose their key once they get on campus. If they do, they should report that to us right away so we can get the locks changed and make sure that their items are secure. We do have card swipe access in all of our buildings. The business office often talks about how this card is used for everything on campus, and it truly is. This card gets them access into their buildings 24 hours a day. We ask that if they don't know that person who's walking in behind them to say, hey, who are you? Where are you going? Why are you here? As parents and guests, what I would ask you is to be cognizant of that we don't know who you are, and our students won't necessarily know who you are, except for maybe your own student. And so even if it's 10:30 in the morning and you've tried calling them a dozen times and they're not answering their phone because they're still sleeping, we ask that you don't just follow somebody in and go to the room and knock. Okay? For our safety and security of all of our residents, we ask that you wait for someone to come and get you into the building. Last but not least, and what I think is most important, that we have an escort service on our campus in which our public safety officers will get you from one area to another 365 days a year, any hour of the day, because we ask that our students don't walk alone. We ask that our parents and guests don't walk alone. It's hard when you sit here and you look out over this beautiful quad, and you look out over the football stadium, to remember that we're in a city. We're in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and that this is an urban environment, and that really walking alone, particularly at night, but any time of the day, is not necessarily the best idea. They can call public safety and say, I need to get from here to there, and they'll make sure that that happens with someone with them. Okay? There are 3 meal plans on our campus, and we tend to encourage all of our students to look at the lowest meal plan, which may be counterintuitive to some of you who think, my student eats 5 meals a day, 7 days a week, you should see my food bill. That's great, but the things to consider with this is that we have so much free food on this campus all the time for students. And they're going to order pizza, and they're going to order Jimmy John's, and they're going to go down to Chipotle, and they're going to go down to Smashburger, whatever the case may be. They're not just going to only eat in our dining facilities. We recommend, and Dining Services recommends, starting on that Block 150 meal plan. That's 150 meals for the whole semester. It also doesn't take into account when you sit and look, well, that's only 10 meals a week. There's 15 weeks in a semester. Well, the dining hall's not open all the time. They only do 2 meals on the weekends. They're closed for the Thanksgiving break for 4 days. Things like that that really affect what that actual number of meals per week is. The other thing to remember is that those meals do not carry over at the end of the semester. So if your student started on the Block 180 meal plan and they only eat 100 meals, you've just lost 80 meals that you paid for. Okay, so please take that into consideration. If you want to change your meal plans or your students change their meal plans today, we will be doing changes down at the info fair at our Residence Life table. Feel free to stop by. Guest meals can be used by any guests and only guests. If they're out of guest meals and you still want to come visit, you can pay cash. They can use their Express dollars, any Flex dollars they have, or you can pay by credit card starting this year at the View downstairs, which is our all-you-can-eat option here on the North Campus. Talk a little bit about Flex dollars. You heard about Express. Flex only comes with the meal plan, meaning those dollars only are associated with that chosen meal plan. You cannot add Flex dollars. You can always add Express dollars. And last but not least, we already talked about this. Our students can reduce their meal plan anytime in the first 2 weeks of the semester. They can increase anytime. So even if your student does that 150 block plan and they run out of meals, they can upgrade to the 180 and just pay the difference in price. So it's a good way to make sure that you're getting your money's worth from the meal plan. Move-in. The most exciting time of year is just about a month away now. Very scary. The one thing I will say is that move-in will happen. You will get, early next week, we'll be sending out our move-in packets. That will include a parking card, one per student that is coming to campus. So, taking that into mind, if you have multiple vehicles, you can only bring one car through at a time. So you're able to switch that card out if you need to, but only one vehicle through to unload at a time. It also means don't feel that you need to go out and get a U-Haul or a trailer. Couple reasons for that. We're unable to really navigate people down and through our system with those big box trucks or with trailers. The way we have to route our cars through the campus does not work with that, which means you'll be parking out on a city street, meaning you'll have very little help to get your items to the building. The other thing to take in consideration about this is that we've seen U-Haul trailers that have shown up to our campus that are much larger than the size of our residence hall rooms. And remember, you're only one student out of multiple that might be living in that space. So, what I ask parents and guests to do is have them set aside exactly what they think they want to bring to campus, walk into the room and say, cut it in half. Okay, and that'll help you, that'll help them. That way it's less items for you to take back on move-in day when it doesn't fit into the room. Last but not least, we have some services on campus that day for our students and parents and guests. We ask that you check those all out. We have a family area that our Vice President of Student Affairs puts on. Really nice place for our parents particularly. There's good food, treats, coffee. I've heard that they have back massage, like neck massage area. Really good after carrying all those heavy boxes in. Make sure you check those out. There is a free lunch in the View that day. Make sure that you enjoy all those services before you leave for the day. Team Sullivan, which is our move-in crew. Team Sullivan is about 300 to 400 students, faculty, and staff who are here to help move you into the buildings that day. So they have these great big laundry carts that they'll fill up from your car, and they'll deliver things right up to your room. It's a really great process. It works really well, and we have great success with it. And it means less hauling of boxes on your half. Last but not least, early arrival. If you have athletes that are coming in early for whatever sports that might be, please follow up with your coaches on your early arrival dates and times. They are responsible for all of that. We will send a confirmation to the students here next week if they are on a roster for athletes, and they'll get notice of when that will be as well. But they really should check with their coaches. So directly we communicate with our students most through email, and that is reslife@stthomas.edu. We also use our website. Facebook is not an official communication, but we do try to echo a lot of what we're doing out there. If you want updates on what's going on, our website is probably our best place for you to do that. We have a parent newsletter that comes out of the Dean and the Student's Office every month. We always have a little blurb in there about upcoming things to think about. Maybe that's break housing, or maybe that's housing selection for next year. Make sure that you take a look at that and sign up today for that. And last but not least, phone calls. I would just stress that we really want to work with your students first. And this does not mean that we don't want you to call us ever, or that we can't be good partners in this. However, it does mean that if you're calling particularly about a roommate conflict, and you're calling me in our office, and you say, hey, my student doesn't know I'm calling, and please don't tell them I called, but I know they're really struggling with this roommate issue. Can you just fix it? Well, it's really difficult for me to then call the student and say, gosh, I was sitting and watching the Vikings game last night and realized you're having a roommate conflict. Let's see if we can resolve that right now. They don't believe me. And then they're going to be even more mad at you because they told you not to call. So just keep that in mind. So make sure you talk to them first. Make sure they feel okay and they're comfortable with you calling before handling that piece. Okay. So some frequently asked questions, and then I'll open it up for one or two from the group. I'm sorry, I'm running a little behind. Will I see my student's room today? Unfortunately, exact rooms are not available to be seen. However, we will show you example rooms in each of our buildings at 4:30 today. And that's going to be, we'll meet on the plaza. There'll be multiple groups going out to the buildings. So if your student isn't back right away and the first group is leaving, don't worry about that. We do really ask that you do not wander through our buildings and try to find your student's exact room. We have youth groups on campus, and kind of for their own safety and security, we ask that you really stay with your group and not wander off to wherever you may want to go. Can my student wait list for a room change? Yes, they may call us or email us at Residence Life prior to move-in, but with the understanding that we don't have a lot of space right now and that it may not be a feasible option until after the school year begins or the spring semester. Last but not least, I know not all of you have the orange sheet yet, but there is a timeline on the back I'll reference to you that will talk about when we do things on campus for signing up for housing for next year, which is in November, and actually selecting their exact room happens in February and March. We allow our students to go through the process, select a space, and then have a month to cancel with us with no fees or penalties. Okay, so they're able to go through that process even if they're looking off campus to make sure they go through and have a backup option. There's no guarantee past that selection date that we will be able to get returning students on campus. So it's very important that if they're even considering it, they should sign up. They can always cancel later. One last frequently asked question up there that isn't up there is laundry. We get a lot of questions about laundry. Laundry include, your room costs include 12 swipes, so 6 washes, 6 dries of laundry every 2 weeks for free. So that means every 2 weeks they just swipe their card, they can do a washer, they can do a dry, whatever the case may be. That is already including your costs, so do not bring any quarters. Don't need them, and that is something that is a benefit to you all as well. So I have time for a couple questions, I think, so I'll turn it over to the group at this point. They're all excited about the laundry. There's no questions. Well, I have one question over here. Excellent. Great. So the question is about printing and should a student bring their own printer or whatever the case may be. That really is a decision up to you and your student. The students are allotted 400 free prints from any campus onto any campus printer for the semester. A lot of our students don't feel the need really to have a secondary printer outside of that. 400 is quite a few prints, so a lot of times they just bring a flash drive down to any of our computer labs, plug it in, and then print off what they need to bring to class. So most of our students do not bring their own printer. Great question, though. Yes, sir. Every hall, I got to think about this, you quiz me. Every hall does have a printer in it. So they are able to print. If they are wired into our networks, they're able to send to a printer. Unfortunately, if they're on the wireless, they cannot send it to a direct printer. They actually have to be wired into the wall. But there is a printer in every hall, which is nice. And then the library has a ton. This building has a bunch up in the leadership room. So there's a lot of places for them to be able to print. One more question? Someone this way. Oh, thank you. Sorry. You're behind the microphone.
Students that are going to stay for J-term, do they have a certain time that they have to register that they will be staying in their dorms for J-terms?
Yes. So they, in December, they'll receive a sign up for that, for either Christmas break or J-term. We ask that they really have a purpose to be on the campus for that time, either classwork or jobs or internships, anything like that. We ask that they're not just kind of hanging out to hang out, because that tends to get them in a little bit of trouble on occasions. So, but they'll get that sign up as they're getting closer to the beginning of December, and they'll be able to go out and sign up for that time.
But is there tuition, I mean, their bill for housing, is there a separate bill for J-term?
Not for housing. If they are living with us both fall and spring semesters, J-term is included in on that. If the student is staying through J-term and maybe they're studying abroad in the spring, then there is a charge for that of $350. Meal plans are separate over the J-term period, and those are, a lot of our students can either sign up for a J-term meal plan, or they just put money on their express card to eat at Tees or Scooters over that time period. Great. I think Sister Sharon's not looking at me. Sister Sharon, are we done? Yes, we are. Thank you. So come see me afterwards. I'll get you, I promise.